You always told me, Bruce, focus on what I want to achieve, and it'll happen. You wanna know what I want now? I want you dead.
The Arkham Knight could have easily been one of the greatest villains of all time, of any video game, and all it would have required was one small shift in the character's focus. Now, I've talked in a previous video of how the Arkham Knight is gigantically sidestepped by his servitude to Scarecrow, the quote-unquote big boss calling the shots, and it's thanks to his demonstration of the fear toxin that allowed him to exercise full reign in Gotham unchecked. And while he's definitely a threat when it comes to his fear toxin and his ties to other villains, we can't deny that the Arkham Knight is vital in actually taking over the city. He's the one that trains the militia in Batman's tactics. He equips them with gear that can actually pinpoint Batman when he's in detective mode. The intricate details to Batman's armor.
Keep your guns trained on him. If he even looks like he's planning to leave that room, open fire. Oh, and avoid the bat symbol. It's a little trick. It's where his armor's the strongest. Aim for the weak spots at the shoulders first, then coordinate fire at the points where the plates meet.
He takes control over the skies of Gotham and even tightens his control on the city streets by dropping bombs that burrow into the streets themselves and deploying tanks that become thicker and stronger, impenetrable to the weaponry that is equipped on the Batmobile. And then the icing on the cake, he brings Scarecrow up to speed on Batman's biggest fears and even tells him his closest associates. Scarecrow, with the invaluable help of the Arkham Knight, launch a coordinated assault not just on Gotham, isolating it from the outside world, but on the Dark Knight himself, isolating him, slowly clipping away at all of his allies. It's a mental and physical game cranked up to 11, and it would have been very interesting to see just how far Scarecrow would have gotten if it wasn't for the Arkham Knight. A villain that could have been so much more, so much bigger, and because of what we got was possibly the biggest disappointment for some. And there are quite a few things to be disappointed about when it comes to this character, from his identity and the unsatisfying reveal of who he actually was, which I don't think inherently who he was is a bad thing. It's more so Rocksteady's shallow attempt to try to make it this giant mystery, which makes it funnier because the audience can see it coming a mile away, but the world's greatest detective spends so much time and resources trying to narrow down just who the Arkham Knight actually was.
Sir, regarding the identity of this so-called Arkham Knight.
What have you found?
Nothing, sir.
The Arkham Knight. Tell me you have a name.
I don't, sir. Master Bruce, my sincerest apologies, but my search for the Arkham Knight's identity has proved fruitless.
Who are you?
Not yet, Dark Knight.
I mean, seriously, the majority of this game he's trying to play catch up with the Arkham Knight's forces and his tactics, and I would say he's taking a step back constantly by just trying to figure out who the hell he actually is. Then you have how little of a presence he has within the game, a game where his name is in the exact title, and at least one disappointing boss fight that takes place in the Batmobile, or what about his failure to actually kill Batman? A goal of his, by the way. Whether if that was due to actual errors on his part, or he was really just following Scarecrow's orders to not kill Batman as he had other plans for him, I think is up for debate. But I honestly think the character could have been saved with one small shift in the character's focus and his objective and how he was presented to us. It's a shift that's made all the more obvious because it's actually already there. It's present within 2 cutscenes within the game, which we're going to go over, and it's even backed up by his audio logs. Believe it or not, it's presented much better in the audio logs, something in the game a vast majority of players will never even hear, which adds to the question of what the hell was Rocksteady thinking when it came to the Arkham Knight.
Do you know what I'm thinking right now?
Of course, you're thinking, who the hell is this guy?
Let's get the elephant out of the room and cover the basics. The Arkham Knight is Jason Todd, the second Robin who Batman mistakenly believed was killed by Joker. Instead, he was left within Joker's care for over a year, during which time Joker subjected him to various forms of torture and quote-unquote games that slowly broke him down, resulting in Jason Todd's mind deteriorating, so far in fact that he eventually started to blame Batman for everything that's happened to him. Batman abandoned him. He left him to die and would rather replace him than go out and ensure his adopted son's safe return. Joker was so successful in brainwashing him, he held no malice towards the Clown Prince that was responsible for all the pain and suffering he was enduring, but instead harbored it all for the person he trusted everything to. The person he looked up to left him alone to die. And that sparked his revenge mission. He embraced the alter ego, the Arkham Knight, as a form of retribution for everything lost in the asylum. The place where minds and bodies go to suffer and wither away. The place where he was forsaken, and the place Batman will never forget, as it will fuel the very retribution he has owed to him. The Arkham Knight wants vengeance in the form of a blood payment, and it was Batman's to collect. At the beginning of the game, when the Arkham Knight reveals himself, it's obvious that's what he's after. Scarecrow rejects him as vengeance, and instead, he resorts to something else. Taunting.
You think I didn't know you were tracking my broadcast location? Here's a lesson, Batman. I know how you think, which means I know how to beat you.
A manifestation of the trauma he had to endure. He tries to humiliate Batman by his own means, the same methods he was subjected to, through pain and confusion. Throughout the game, he constantly antagonizes Batman, trying his best to sow confusion and give a feeling of hopelessness. He taps into Batman's communication and communicates with him directly, telling him they're going to win, and he knows how he thinks to just give up. This is even backed up by cutscenes. He uses Batman's own tactics against him when he least expects it, catching him off guard and shooting him in the one spot where his armor is the thinnest, the spot where it makes direct contact with his skin.
You're not going anywhere, man. Tri-weave titanium-coated armor plating. Nice. Unless you know exactly where to shoot. You're good, Dark Knight. Even better than I remember. It's gonna make it even more satisfying when I kill you. Oh, and don't worry about Barbara. I'll take better care of her than you ever did. Batman's in the control room. Show him what happens when he messes with minds.
Instead of finishing the job, he just leaves him to be dealt with by lesser goons. You could say it's the push and pull of emotions he experiences every time he sees Batman in the flesh. It's much easier to brood and have your anger intensify when the problem or issue causing you so much distress is out of mind. And when it's finally placed back in front of you harboring such deep-rooted resentment, people tend to act impulsively, which could very well explain a lot of the Arkham Knight's actions and perceived failures. Going off the first interaction with Batman saying he knows Batman is wondering who the hell this guy is, all the way to the showdown in the Cloudburst when he loses all sense of self-restraint and just attempts to kill Batman without any second thought, sacrificing Scarecrow's Cloudburst in the process, resulting in the rift in their partnership that is kind of miraculous that it lasted as long as it did. Scarecrow is cold, methodical, and calculated. The Arkham Knight lacks the sense of control despite his combat training, and despite him and Scarecrow basically having the same reason to seek their own vengeance. They both have their own revenge story to tell, but where Scarecrow's is actually given substance and depth, the Arkham Knight's is shallow and superficial. He just wants Batman dead, and his big stick is his identity is a mystery, but he knows so much about Batman, and it's pretty much left there until the complicated emotions he has underneath is finally revealed.
You really have no idea, do you,
Bruce.
Jason. But you're dead.
What's the matter? Lost for words? I expected more. I'm hurt.
Joker sent me the film. I saw him kill you.
Don't you dare lie to me! How long did you wait before replacing me, huh? A month? A week? I trusted you! And you just left me to die!
That's not what happened.
You always told me, Bruce. Focus on what I want to achieve, and it'll happen.
The final showdown between the Arkham Knight and Batman. The Knight's identity is finally revealed to Batman and the player if you didn't pick up on the giant clues by now. With the mask off and his voice no longer altered, we get to see the raw emotions and pure pain Jason is experiencing. He was left, forgotten, forsaken, and easily replaced by someone who he dedicated everything to. Someone he held out hope for, and when that person moved on, hope along with any bit of love easily died and was replaced with hate. The night-long taunts, coordinated attacks, quick speech on if you focus enough, whatever you want will happen. This was all something he dreamed of for a very long time. It's like telling an abuser you had enough of their crap and you're moving on. He doesn't hate out of Batman foiling his plans or just because he hates what Batman stands for. On the contrary, it's a rather personal vendetta we can all relate to in some way. Albeit not as intense as being subjected to torture, but I think we all know what it's like being let down or disappointed in a family member or close friend, someone you looked up to and counted on. Instead of rising to the occasion and picking you up, they instead chose to leave, move on, and found someone to have a good enough time with. You are easily disposable. Or in Jason's case, he came to believe everyone within the Batman's family, Tim Drake, Nightwing, Barbara, they're all disposable. They will easily be forgotten, and Batman will have no problem sacrificing them as long as the overall mission is achieved. He has no malice towards the new Robin, towards Alfred, Nightwing, or even Barbara, who he kidnapped. As a matter of fact, it's the complete opposite of that. While Barbara was in his custody, he made sure no one in the militia put a hand on her. And while I said it's his belief that the entire Bat family is disposable to Batman, in the cutscene that's only related directly to him. However, in the audio logs that he has, that's his belief and his conversation with Barbara.
Get the fellow away from her. He's gone. Did he hurt you?
Spare me the good cop, bad cop routine.
No. See, you're supposed to keep me talking. Play for time. Wait for Batman. That's what he taught you, right?
I've got nothing to say to you.
Me? I talked for hours, because I knew, right? Batman was on his way to save me. And the bastard just let me talk. Eventually, I just ran out of things to say. So trust me, you can't count on Bruce to save you.
Bruce?
Yeah, Scarecrow doesn't know. It's our little secret. Now here's another. Batman likes to play the hero, Barbara, and he's pretty good at it, but it's an act. Batman's not about saving the innocent, no, he's about punishing the guilty. Now don't get me wrong, he'll look for you, or he'll try. But when it comes down to it, when he has to make a choice between you and the mission, he'll choose the mission. Every time.
You're wrong.
Look me in the eye and say that.
Jason?
He tries to get her to see and understand the real person that Batman is. The type of person to sacrifice everyone, including his closest associates, the people that he looks after, the people that he considers family. They're disposable and easily forgotten so long as the main mission is achieved. And while he's having this conversation with Barbara, during the main story, Batman does do some things that lends a little bit of credence to what Jason says, specifically in terms of the death of Barbara. During the main story, both Batman and Alfred believe Barbara was killed. Barbara is not only working very closely with Tim Drake, which is the other Robin, and of course Batman, but Barbara is also the romantic interest of Robin. And throughout the main story, he's constantly asking what's going on in the streets of Gotham, how's Barbara, he lost communication with her, is everything alright? Batman intentionally tells him she's fine. He needs Robin to focus on the cure for himself and everyone else that's infected with Joker's blood. And he believed that if Robin was aware that Barbara was dead, he would then shift his focus from working on a cure, which Batman believed was much more important, to going out and searching for Scarecrow, which could have caused other issues, of course, which brings an entirely different question and topics into the conversation. But for the bottom line, even Alfred tells Batman he needs to consider this decision very wisely because he could lose Robin.
Sir, how are you going to tell Master Drake about Barbara? He'll be devastated. He could do something dangerous.
I'm not. Not yet. I need him focused on the cure.
Sir, it was bad enough keeping Miss Gordon's abduction a secret. But this? It's wrong.
We have to make sacrifices, Alfred.
Consider those sacrifices wisely, sir. If he finds out she's gone and you didn't tell him, you will lose him forever.
It's kind of important to know if someone was killed, especially if that person is someone that you loved and the person that you looked up to knew the entire time. So in a very interesting way, the things Jason says does have a little bit of credence because Batman does do it in the story. And if Rocksteady would have put that front and center in the story, or if that would have became the Arkham Knight's main focus, instead of subjecting Barbara, Drake, or anyone else tied to Batman, to Scarecrow's fear toxin and instead started pushing Batman in certain ways where he would willingly withhold information from them, then he could have twisted things even more, and he basically could have made a giant situation where he presented them a flawed Batman, and it was their choice and their decision to continue to side with him or to side with the Arkham Knight, having that be the different motive, or having an extra cutscene or two where they focused a little bit more on the emotional pain that he's going through and why he has it out so much towards Batman instead of having this whole mystery surrounding him. If they would have played in the more emotional, complex father-son dynamic, this son fallen from grace that just hates his adopted father that just completely abandoned him, it would have been such a more compelling story. And while I do love that they left this to the audio logs, leaving something like this to audio logs would have been more appropriate for side villains, for side characters, not someone who knows so much about Batman and is meant to be a very critical villain throughout the story, and just leaving this to the background for a select few to find, or at least not having the majority of people find, does way more harm than good. And there would have been a very strong redeeming element. The conclusion to their final showdown already has it, but it would have been made all the much more impactful. Batman outmaneuvers Jason, showing him that age hasn't slowed him down, and anger has only clouded Jason's judgment and made him much more impulsive. He has a moment where he tries to remind him that deep down he is still Robin. He was never abandoned, he still has a home. He even tries to reach a hand out and give him some sort of solace from all the pain, anger, and sadness he's had for all this time.
You did this to me!
I'm sorry.
You left me to rot in that abandoned wing of Arkham for over a year! With him!
It's not too late. We can fix this. Together.
It's a path neither one of them want to be down, and while it may be a tragic series of events and misunderstandings that led them there, nothing's been done to the point of no return. At least from Batman's perspective. Jason rejects the offer, feeling ashamed and permanently altered from what the Joker did. But his final encounter with Batman isn't lost on him. At the end of the game, he's the one that returns for a brief moment and saves Batman from the gurney he was strapped into, allowing him to break free and finally apprehend Scarecrow. Now we get there's more to the story, and the Arkham Knight, his origins and his relationship to Batman is much deeper given comic books, but looking strictly at the material Rocksteady has given us within this game solely, I mean, it's already within the game. If they wouldn't have put it within audio logs and would have presented it front and center, and they just did that small shift of trying to make him a giant mystery and instead fed more into the origins, that pain and suffering, I think he would have been more universally received from many players. And I'm not entirely sure if that really would have came at the cost of the Scarecrow story that we got. Maybe it would have. Maybe it would have ate too much more into the development time and overall resources. Let me know what you think. If you stood all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. Consider hitting the subscribe button and dropping a like for future content, not only pertaining to the Arkham Knight, but other games as well. But thank you, and I'd love to hear your opinion on all this.